Everyone loves Demon Slayer, and that's true especially in Japan. But no matter how hardcore of a Demon Slayer fan you are, how well do you really think you know all of the hidden cultural secrets? Today, I'm going to be counting down my top 4 hidden cultural secrets that are hidden right in front of our faces with the 4 main characters. I'm going to start with the most obvious and work my way down to something so deep, I can almost guarantee that you've never heard this take before. Okay, starting with number 1, the most obvious, Inosuke. He's always diving headlong into things with way more confidence than he should be allowed to have. And on top of his head, he wears a boar. The question is, do you know the significance of the boar in Japanese culture? Japan adapted the Chinese horoscope and since then has been incorporating the 12 animals into art that you see everywhere. The boar, or the Inoshishi, is known for being stubborn, direct, and always just diving headlong into everything. You might notice a lot of references to this type of behavior in movies like Princess Mononoke, Mononoke Hime. So this choice of having Inosuke wearing the boar head already tells Japanese viewers a lot about his personality. And the fact that his favorite slogan is the Yoji Jukugo, Chototsu Moshin. Chototsu Moshin is literally written for a boar that's charging straight ahead without any regard for anything. And it means just to go for something, and no matter what obstacles you hit, just keep on going. My number 2 is actually my favorite, even though it is a little bit obvious. It's Tanjiro. There are several elements about Tanjiro's character and his costume as well that make him really interesting from a Japanese cultural point of view. Let's start with his howdy, his coat that he wears. It has that green and black checkered pattern. That checkered pattern is what is now known as an Ichimatsu Monyo. Ichimatsu Monyo became called Ichimatsu Monyo because of a kabuki actor, Ichimatsu Sanogawa. Ichimatsu Sanogawa wore this pattern and it immediately became a hit in old Tokyo. This is what's known as an infinity pattern. It repeats endlessly in all directions. Because of this, it has the meaning of legacy or connection or unity or perseverance. I find this very appropriate for Tanjiro's character, as he himself never gives up. He keeps going, but also he sees himself as part of a legacy. Hinokami Kagura literally means Hinokami, the sun god or fire god. Kagura. A kagura is basically a traditional form of dance and music that is a religious form of worship made to appease the gods. Kagura can be found throughout Japan, basically wherever you go, and they are some of the oldest and most quote-unquote authentically Japanese forms of dance and music that you can find. Almost without exception, every single kagura can trace its roots back to part of one of the creation stories that you can find in some of the old texts like Nihon no Shoki that is about Amaterasu. Amaterasu, who was the sun goddess, gets upset and hides in a cave, Ama no Iwato. The other gods are in a bit of a bind because without the sun, crops fail, it's dark all the time, lots of evil things come out, no one's having a good time. So they do their best to entice her to come out of the cave. They do this by drumming, playing music, and dancing. She comes out of the cave, sun comes back to the world, everyone lives happily ever after, and this is how the Kagura was born. What's interesting to me, because Tanjiro is the only one to use a Kagura. Kagura is not a breath, it's not a technique, it's actually a form of worship, which might explain why Hinokami Kagura is so powerful and why it's different from the other techniques. It's not just a technique, it's actually a Kagura, a ritual, a form of worship that's used to expel demons and evil forces and bring back peace and balance to the surrounding world. At number 3, I have Nezuko. Nezuko's iconic pink kimono with that pattern became a huge hit in Japan. When Demon Slayer first came out, all the little girls were wanting to wear the same pattern as Nezuko. This pattern is called Asanoha Monyo. Asanoha, and asa is a hemp plant. This pattern is supposed to represent the leaf of a hemp plant. It's a bit stylized, so you'd have to look pretty closely, but it's there. Hemp, since ancient times, was seen as a sacred material. Why? Well, first of all, because it was a grass that grew very strong, grew very quickly, and it grew very straight. And on top of that, it had a natural ability to repel pests, repel insects. Ancient people saw this and assumed that there was some type of inherent spiritual nature to this plant that helped it ward off evil. Since that time, hemp plants or hemp cloths have been used in traditional sacred ceremonies. Now, during the Edo period, this pattern became popular for two reasons. Once, it was the first time that many people were coming together, living in very close quarters in a large city when sanitation wasn't great. What this led to is quick spread of diseases and a very, very high mortality rate, especially for young children. Parents in old Edo would take patches of this asanoha pattern and put it onto their children's kimono to try to protect them, to give them long life, to help them grow up straight and strong, and to repel evil. Whether it worked or not is debatable, but it makes sense why Nezuko would have this pattern on her, a form of protection from the evil in the hope that she's able to repel evil and grow up strong and straight. However, I think it goes deeper than this. There was one more reason that this pattern was super popular during the Edo period, and that has to do with a famous actor. One of the most popular actors at that time decided to wear this kimono during a special performance of Yaoya Oshichi. Yaoya Oshichi is the tragic tale, and actually a true story, about a young girl who, hoping to have the love of her life come back again to try and rescue her, burns down her own house. In real life, she was later tried and executed by being burned at the stake because arson was a capital offense. However, this story was romanticized and retold in many different ways in different plays. In the kabuki telling of this tale, she climbs up a tower to ring the fire alarm, a false alarm, which is also a capital offense, in the hopes that her love will run to her. We never really find out if she gets caught and executed for this, but we can assume that she understood this was a capital offense and most likely was killed for it. At the climax of the story, we see Yaoya Oshichi climbing up the fire tower, and she reveals that she is wearing an asanoha pattern. What does this mean? Well, this asanoha pattern had an image of being something pure, something innocent and childlike, as it was the pattern that parents put on their children. And so it was the contrast between this childlike, pure innocence being contrasted with doing this highly illegal thing that would most likely result in her death. Nezuko as well has a very pure and childlike innocence to her, as she's the size of a child for half of the show. But that is in stark contrast to the fact that she is a demon, and that in itself is a crime. Obviously, keeping your sister demon inside of a box would be a capital offense, and many times in the show, people tried to kill her. Either Hashira tried to kill her. After this performance, the asanoha monyo became super popular. Now, whether this reference to kabuki was intended or not, I can definitely guarantee you that the image of that childlike innocence definitely is. And I think that's why this was a brilliant choice by the creator of Demon Slayer. Now, as I was looking around at some other channels, seeing what type of hidden cultural insights they had, I noticed a common question coming up. That of why Nezuko doesn't have to eat humans to keep getting stronger. It doesn't make sense. She seemed to be like the exception to the rule. In Japan, this isn't that big of an issue. There are several very famous traditions throughout Japan in which the Oni are actually the good guys. Whether that's in Aichiken, where they have these all-night dances celebrating Oni that they believe save and help their town and keep everything alive, or whether that's in a whole town that's basically dedicated to Oni found in Aomori Prefecture. If you go there, you can find the tori, the gates in front of the shrines with little Oninoko, these little Oni perched on the top. There's even a shrine called Oni Jinja that you can visit there. So basically, for Japanese, it's not so strange that Nezuko isn't necessarily a bad guy, as there are good Oni out there too. Oni that can heal, Oni that can protect, Oni that can help build. Coming in at my number one hidden cultural secret is Zenitsu. If you look at the pattern of Zenitsu's, he has these little triangles. This triangle pattern, there's different variations of it, but it's called uroko. Uroko is a scale, like a fish scale, and it is supposed to be a form of protection. It's actually considered to be one of the oldest traditional Japanese patterns out there, literally dating back millennia. Now, this pattern is famous for basically two uses. The first one has to do with the samurai. Samurai used to wear this pattern underneath their armor as spiritual protection. On the outside, their armor would protect them from things like arrows and swords and whatnot, and this on the inside would give them spiritual protection against evil spirits. However, the level that really interests me is how this is used in No and Kabuki theater. There's an entire genre of characters, these serpent women, jaona, who are women who had a sleeping, vengeful, spiteful serpent spirit that comes awake and sends them on some type of murderous, vengeful rampage. In both No theater and Kabuki theater, there's a famous story of Kiyohime, who was a young girl who fell in love with a passing monk, Anchin, who is a monk, so obviously can't get too close with the girls. So he gets her to step away by agreeing to visit her again on his way back on a trip. However, he decides to take a different way home, and when Kiyohime finds out about this, the inner vengeful serpent spirit inside of her is awoken. And as she chases him down, it comes more and more to the surface until she crosses a river when she fully transforms into the serpent form. She chases him down into his temple, Dojoji, and he hides inside of the giant bell. She wraps her serpent body around the bell, breathes fire into it, and burns the guy to a crisp. In one of the most popular No and Kabuki plays, Dojoji, a young woman visiting the temple asked to see the new bell that they're going to consecrate. But because of the terrible accident with Anchin being burned to death, the temple has basically made it against the rules for women to come inside. She convinces the monks that she'll do a very nice, like kagura-like dance. They agree, and she starts her dance very nice and innocent, but as she gets closer and closer to the bell, the dance becomes more aggressive, more energetic. At the finale, the climax, she gets behind the bell, and when she climbs up on top of it from behind, she emerges wearing the Iroko pattern. You can watch No theater or Kabuki theater, and if you ever see this pattern, it is basically one of these jaona. It's a serpent that is awoken. It's this vengeful serpent spirit that has awoken within this woman, and she's gone on this rampage. Zenitsu really has a very dark something living deep down inside his heart and inside his soul. Most of the time he's asleep, but at some point, I think this pattern is letting us know that that serpent spirit, that vengeful spirit, is going to awake and wreak havoc. And I'm really looking forward to that moment. All these designs and powers are not random. They draw on centuries, and in some cases even millennia of history and culture, and they present it in a really, really interesting modern way. And that's really why Kimetsu no Yaiba and Demon Slayer hits hard even here in Japan, and why so many people like it. It's not just an anime, it's a fun, modern way to connect to some of Japan's most ancient traditions. So that's it. That's my top 4 cultural secrets. If you learned something new today or you liked what you saw, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and please leave me a comment. Tell me in the comments which one of these details surprised you the most. Was there anything that you've heard here that you've never heard before anywhere else? I'd love to hear what you think, and let me know if you want to see me do any more deep dives into different anime or Japanese culture or anything. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Thrive in Japan.